right, let's carry on. So, Viridian. As I'm doing these swatches, actually, I'd like to point out the importance. So, pose, pose, pose. What I'm going to share with you here. If you have a situation where you start squeezing the tube, don't continue squeezing it when you have Gamma Arabic come out. Did you see that? No. So this is Gamma Arabic, it's the binder. And what you need to do at that point is stick a clean, dry toothpick, give it a good mix, because sometimes what happens is the pigment separates with Gamma Arabic, and you basically end up squeezing out the Gamma Arabic and kind of messing up the ratio of the pigment and Gamma Arabic. I mean, your color still will work, but what it may mean is that you will have a more drier, more thicker solution in there if you get too much of the Gamma Arabic out. So what I tend to do is try to somehow incorporate it. So yeah, for people who underestimate swatches, now I'll tell you this, Rome hasn't been built in one day. So swatches actually are the building bricks of all watercolor journeys that you will be taking. Without them, you're missing out on the very significant first steps of your knowledge in watercolor. So if you skip that step and you go straight into painting, you'll be pretty clueless. So use this time to learn. Don't rush into watercolor. Don't kind of skip the important part. And yeah, I think there's not that many people that don't enjoy swatches, thank goodness. But just something I wanted to point out. Okay, so Viridian, next one, burnt sienna. So I wrote here, just as a little note, that PG18 is Viridian and PG7 could be any kind of a sienna, raw, burnt, etc. And amber, same thing, raw, burnt, etc. Okay, so here we go. So here is our burnt sienna. Beautiful, just beautiful. I'm pretty sure I tried these mixing combos before, but I never realized that this is how Terre Verte is made up. So with this particular sienna, it's a little bit on the opaque side. It's not fully opaque, but I'd say it's a semi. There's a good Schmincke transparent burnt sienna, which is just super gorgeous. And I think I used it on the previous page where I showed you those lovely mixes up there in that tutorial. Okay, so I'm going to try and lift some of it because it's a bit much. Be honest, when you hear, if you're a watercolor fanatic like myself, when you hear rag and bone, do you think of this type of rag? That's what I do anyway. Okay, so I'm going to just move it this way and to reveal a bit more of the transparent side of it. Okay, so let's try and mix up our middle ground. So I'm going to get this lovely raw sienna, sorry, not raw sienna, burnt sienna. And a nice thick load here. It's quite muddy, this particular swatch. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely muddier than the Terre Verte one, so I will go with just a touch of it somewhere in here. think this is a good Terre Verte color. If you find that doing 5 swatches is not enough variety for you, what you can do is just basically connect the stems 5 and 5, and then you have 10. So you have more space to do more gradient swatches if you wanted to do that. And let's say I now want to go into here and have this brown kind of color. Okay, interesting. This is definitely a Terre Verte color right here. Quite like that. So we can see that the difference here, this is a much more redder PBR7 than this PBR7. So it could be that you need more of a sienna than umber. So I decided I actually quite like these mixes, and I'll probably do some sort of botanical on this side of the sketchbook. So I'll keep these colors because there's quite a bit. I didn't want to waste them. And I'll work with these mixes for the Terre Verte botanical piece. So I'll just put them somewhere here. We went to Whitstable over the weekend on Mother's Day, and we picked some oyster shells on the beach. And yeah, whoever knows and loves the Lobster Shack, shout out. Anyway, so yeah, we collected them, and I actually tried to pick up some of the more flatter oyster shells, not the ones that are kind of like little cups, because I wanted to use them for mixing. I always run out of mixing space, so it might be a bad idea, but we'll see if things will start leaking out here or not. But anywho, the next mix, let's focus on that. Shall we do Schmincke and then Daniel Smith, and then finish off with Romance to Szmal? I think I'll do that. So Schmincke, okay, we will do this time Viridian with maroon brown and see where that brings us. I'll try to squeeze out a smaller amount this time if I can. Like that. So let's create a little puddle here. Now this is a beautiful color. It goes really well with all those browns. So technically it's quite similar to this color, so it might give us a very interesting Terre Verte mix. Or shall I say Terre Verte imitation, because technically this is a natural earth pigment. The maroon brown has lovely granulation, this color, so I'm looking forward to see how it behaves with Viridian. So now goes in Viridian again. Nice little mix like so. Here we go, let's try and mix them together. And we get a nice green. That will be our middle ground color. Bit too green for Terre Verte, so again one above will be probably a closer mix. Having said that, I love the warmth of this green. Quite earthy. And now we're going to mix up I'm more of a brown. Oops, touch the colors. We're going to now mingle and have the party. So I'll leave it at that. Okay, so hopefully I'm just going to wash out my brush, dry it up a bit, and somehow hope that it will be enough to create Terre Verte color here. Yeah, I think that's a good color actually. What do you reckon? So this looks quite nice. Okay, kind of really similar to this mix as well. Okay, so that was good. Also zero waste, so I'm quite happy about that. Back to Daniel Smith. This time let's do Mummy Book side. Again, this sort of the sort of color that we want. This one needs water because you can see it's a bit too creamy. When it's too creamy, it just means it'll be more on the opaque side. You won't see the lovely granulation, so you add more water if your mix is too creamy. Otherwise there won't be much of a movement. That is so lovely in watercolors. And then swish it back here. Swish, swish, swish. The Katy Perry song. Okay, and then back into Viridian. Okay, so now middle ground color. Seems to be a muddy green, but we'll go with it. There you go. And now just wash the brush off, dry it off, go into more this mix. If there is too much of a dome in your watercolors, again, that just means there's too much moisture. So clean your brush, take off extra moisture on a rag, and then go back and correct it. Right, now I hope I have enough Viridian left here to create our perfect Terre Verte. So there we go. So you see more Viridian and very little of the brown PBR7. There we go. Okay, so let's title this one as well and come back. You might think at this point they look very, very similar, and they do. But the judgment will be more precise once things are fully dried. Next one, Sedona Genuine and Viridian mix again. So far I'm coming to the usual conclusion with the Primatex that really Primatex are beautiful on their own and not so fantastical in most cases. For mixes, you can get away with much more affordable burnt siennas and things like that versus, you know, your Mummy Book size that will cost you a little fortune. Yeah, so for mixing, don't need them. Now, Sedona Genuine is actually one of my top colors. let me know in the comments box if you have been on this channel for a while, or maybe even not. Would you like me to do my favorite, should I do favorite Daniel Smith or favorite colors across all brands? Like, would you be interested just by brand? Shall I go through my Schmincke? So I'll tell you which colors I have most of. So I've got a lot of White Nights, Roman Szmal, or Szmal, Roman Szmal, and Daniel Smith, Schmincke. I've got a fair bit of Mijello and some others, but those are kind of the main colors. Would you like me to go brand by brand, separate them, make it nice and organized, and tell you which colors are my favorite from those brands, or just a concoction of all brands together and just kind of do all colors favorites? Like, but that would be probably a bit of a too long video. So with Sedona Genuine, it's not as strong as, for instance, Mami Bauxite and Burnt Sienna, so you may find that things get watery quite quickly. So for instance here, when I work with Sedona Genuine, I get through a lot, specifically in mixes, because it just, you have to carry on kind of squeezing more and more of the color. I find that's what happens to me. Get it used up quite quickly, and because it's so expensive, I try to resist and use it just on its own. Okay, so I definitely need more of the Viridian here. Just, as Mason would say, it gobbled it up. Let's actually create a more kind of stronger Terre Verte mix, because by this stage I end up with quite a watery one. So let's see. Well, that's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, that's quite a nice, actually quite good. Yeah, I was going to say quite close to the Viridian in the book. So now it's just gone traveling here. Let me bring that in and show you. So it's actually perfect mix here. But again, I think it's more because I added more of the Viridian at the end. That's why we kind of got to that strength more than the others. But the colors is still right everywhere here. So you could have, basically, all you need is the Viridian. You can't get out of it. Have the Viridian PG18, and then whatever browns you can see, all sorts of siennas, all sorts of browns, even go outside of the BR7. You can find anything else that will still work quite nicely, as long as it's basically a warm brown, kind of reddish brown color. But any type would mix quite well. Okay, so, and I think definitely more into these colors, like I said, warm browns, than the ambers. The amber didn't quite work really well, although still close enough. I can actually see the brown come through here more, which doesn't happen in the Terre Verte, so I think the others behave better. Okay, for today I'll do one more, and this is kind of a little bit outside of the PG18 and PBR7. I am going to look up what the pigments are in here, if I can. No, I think I don't have the same page for these. These were the first ones I tried out, so I can't tell you. But I'll try to look up a bit later what the pigments are. But what I'm thinking of using is cobalt turquoise, and the hematite violet shade. And I think, so hematite violet shade is PR 102. And there is also hematite brown shade, which is PR 102. And both of them are earth pigments. But at least, you know, the pigments are stated here, unlike in some brands. So I think what I'm going to do is use both of them. I'm tempted to even use these ones. Look, they would be lovely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Why don't we just use all of these colors as kind of an imitation of the PBR7, which I told you about looking at the Daniel Smith swatch card, where you could see it would start from raw sienna, which is similar to this color. It's kind of like a yellow ochre type of color, very similar to that, and then going all the way down to the sepias or the ambers, burnt ambers. So this is the perfect range, and let's just go with it. I will tell you the pigments later. I will be mixing these 5 colors with the cobalt turquoise right here. So it's a more of a muted color, as you can see, kind of more on a grayish side. But let's see what we get. I mean, you never know. We might get a Terre Verte here. So I just need to organize all of these palettes. Okay, let's start with cobalt turquoise. That's this color here. See, once I start, it's hard to stop. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you can agree on that watercolors are just something magical. Okay, so here we go. Cobalt turquoise, and then we have, I just need to see where we are here. So it starts after the green, after the dark green. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now you can't see that. So we will start 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the first color is Burnt Sienna Monte Amiata. What a beautiful name. Okay, let's start with it. And just do the swatches. Wow. You know, I have to say, color-wise, I really was impressed by Roman Szmal. Okay, so I have no idea at which point the memory card got full. And so far, these are the mixes that I've done with the Burnt Sienna Monte Amiata. Next color I will be swatching is the Aquarius Brown with the cobalt turquoise. So these two together. I think I'll go ahead and just swatch all of them because I'll be using this color for the rest of the swatches. I can't believe how our weather changed. So today is Tuesday. On Saturday, I was sunbathing in the garden in a bikini, and then the next day it was around 10 degrees, and then it was -1 in the morning for Monday, and today is pouring down with rain and freezing cold. So yeah, how it all goes from one to another. So Aquarius Brown, let's just get some of this Aquarius brown, and I'm just checking that you can see. So Aquarius brown is quite opaque, and you only need a little bit of it, but it's super granulating, so I think it will give us some interesting colors. Now this color kind of reminds me a little bit of the Sedona Genuine, but Sedona Genuine is a bit more redder, so you can see, but it behaves very similar to Sedona Genuine. It's got these lovely speckles here. So I'm just going to go and create a middle color. So this one already is creating some interesting pigment separation, and I hope you can see what's happening right here in the shell. So the Aquarius brown is quite an interesting color to have. I'm going to add a bit more. You can see once you wake it up, you kind of bring all the pigments up, but when they are a bit more settled, they do some interesting things. So this mix is beautiful. Now I hope I don't have a too opaque mix. I'll add some water. So I'm just going to move it to the other side like that. I think, no, it's not opaque, so it's good. And then a bit more of the Aquarius brown. It's quite pretty in the pan as well. It's got a beautiful kind of rusted or rustic color. And here we go. Need some more water. So this one is very pretty. Again, look what's happening here. So the heavier pigments settle down, and then you have the turquoise come through, and it looks really interesting. Okay, I like the mixes here.